Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jim Hoven, your host for the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast. And as you can see, I'm by myself today, no guest, which is, if you've followed the show for a while, you know that it's not something that we normally do. Normally, we take the time to spend time visiting with, interviewing, and getting information from people who are making a difference, whether that be locally, nationally, or even internationally. So that's been super fun. But with the start of the new year, people have been asking me about New Year's, not only resolutions, but goals and habits and that kind of thing. So I thought I would just take a few minutes. This will be a short episode compared to some of the other ones that we do, but just give a few thoughts on the new year, what it means, what it could look like for you, what I think our perspective should be on the new year, on goals, all that kind of stuff. And hopefully it brings you some value. So if as you go through this, it does bring you value, would you please do me a favor and share it with people that you think that they could benefit from it as well? Because the only way we get this information out is if you're willing to take it, embrace it, and then give it away. So anyway, without further ado, let's talk about 2022. It's brand new, it's just here. And some people are big on New Year's resolutions. For me, I'm not so much a New Year's resolution guy. Rather, what I like to do is I like to reflect. Typically what I'll do is on the last day or even in the week of the year, I'll take some time during those days to just reflect on how my year went in the key areas of life, not in everything. Now, you can take this and get crazy where some people take as little as an hour to do this. Other people take as long as a week or even two to go through their calendar, look at everything, every date, and then go through this real intricate process of spending time understanding what worked and what didn't in the year that is just coming to an end. Now, with us already being in the new year, it's probably a little late for us to go too deep into that, but you can do this whenever you want. So if you want to do some reflection, here's what I would say. Take a time to look back through. If you are a calendar person, then that's fine. Go back through your calendar, look at the not only the business things, but the personal things, and see what were the highlights for you. What made you really feel good? Or if looking at a meeting that you had on the books made you feel really bad, like it was a crusher, and you can remember that, why did it make you feel that way? And if you can identify those feelings of what made you really enjoy this process versus what made you really think this process was an energy drain for you, now you can start looking ahead to say, okay, as I'm coming up into the weeks, months, and the year ahead, what should I do more of or stay away from? That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is to, if you're reflecting, and this is more the way that I do it, I just take a look in rewind in my mind. And I go, okay, when I look at my relationships, the key relationships that I have in my life, how'd they do? If I were rating them on a scale of 0 to 10 right now, 10 is the highest, 0 is the lowest, what number would I give them and why? And if I want that relationship to go higher, to be elevated, what do I need to do? And then I can get a list of those key relationships and I can ask those folks in my life, what could I do to make this relationship closer to a 10 than wherever you would rate it right now? And that gives me a list of things that I can work on in the future. You could do the same with your health and your finances and your career, anything, your hobbies, anything that you want to do, you can just look at it in that way. So take the area of life, think back on it through the year, how would you rate it? And then what could you do to move that closer to a 10 if that's important to you? So that's kind of a look and rewind. Now let's talk about moving forward. Again, I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy because for me, if I could put one word in my mind that led to what I would consider to be success, it would be consistency. Because here's what I know. We're all consistent in the things that we do. All of us. We're consistent. It's just, are we doing things that take us towards our goals or away from them? And I've mentioned this on the podcast before in other contexts. So if you've heard this before, please just let it ring to your ears one more time and hopefully help you, like I have to always bring it back to my attention as well. So with consistency, the only thing that we need to decide is, again, are we being consistent in a way that's taking us toward where we want to go, or is our consistency moving us away? For example, let's talk about our health for a moment, because that's the easy one. In January, everyone's thinking, man, I want to get fit, I want to lose weight, I want to put on muscle, I want to be able to run a 5K, whatever the goals are, they always seem to go around a few things, one of which is health. Probably the number one goal of people that I talk to, when I say, what are you thinking for the next year? It's about their health. And so if we look at what we want to do with that, if we just examine where we're at right now on our consistency, we're being consistent in our workouts or not working out. We're being consistent in our good diet or our bad diet. We're being consistent in the amount of rest we get, the amount of water we drink, or the way that we don't get enough rest and enough water. You get the point. In fact, we did a podcast or an episode on this where we talked about the results guaranteed equation. You can look that up, and we use a formula where consistency is the thing that's the variable that is a multiplier of your results, as opposed to the additional variables, which in this case were your actions and your attitude. You add those together, but you multiply consistency. That's where the results come in. So you can check that out or reach out to me, jim@ramoslaw.com, and I'll get you more information about that. But anyway, when looking forward, the reason that, again, I'm not a big New Year's resolution fan, just like the name implies, it's a New Year's resolution. It doesn't say a full year resolution or a lifetime resolution. So oftentimes, of course, what happens in New Year's resolutions, we've all done it. We start it, we go through the first few weeks, we get through that excitement honeymoon phase of our new habits, and suddenly the old creeps in, or it gets too hard, or it becomes inconvenient, and we lose our momentum. So instead of New Year's resolutions, the thing that I would really like you to think about is essentially what we just talked about a little bit ago in the areas of your life, and take some time at the beginning of the year and say, what's really important to me? I've begun this exercise as well, whereas I'm writing down, and it's taken me a long time because as I have gotten into the deeper process, it's been more of a project than I thought. And here's what I'm working on. What truly, and I mean truly, makes me happy? What things do I love to do that if they're not in my life, I feel like I have an emptiness or a hole? What are some of those things? And if you can find those and identify those, whether it's by area of life or by individual activity, and then start saying, how do I plan these into my life? Schedule them in. And what can I do to make sure that I get the most out of those things? I think then you don't have to worry about New Year's resolutions or May resolutions or quarterly resolutions. Now you're just saying, I'm working on being the best version of myself. And at the end of the day, if we get there, if our best version of ourselves is expressing itself in the areas of life that we either really want to take care of or really have to take care of, then we win. I mean, think about this. There's some things we all have to do, right? We have responsibilities. And when I say we have to do, I mean we choose to bring these things into our life. If you choose to purchase a home or live in a place where there's rent involved, you've decided, I'm willing to pay that price. So there's things that you say that you have to do, but really you choose to do. You know, you could live in a commune with a group of 20 people and have very little rent expense. Or you can buy a home in a market that's a little overpriced and you understand the value that means, so you're willing to sacrifice from that. Same thing is true in any area of your life, your relationships, your health, your fitness. It doesn't matter, it's all the same. So when it comes down to it, you say, what are the things that are really important to me? What do I love to do? And then start doing them. And start saying, here's another great question. Who do I need to become in order to live the life that I want to live? So if you want to, let's say you really want to create a new business this year. That's something that you would love to do. Who do you need to become to be a business owner? What things do you need to know? What context do you need to have? Who are the resources that help a business owner be a business owner? And by understanding that, now you can actually go into that mode of starting to create it almost out of thin air. Like you start thinking of who I need to become and what things need to be there. And now all of a sudden you start using the power of your mind and the power of right action, and they will start showing up. There's a beautiful book that I would refer you to that I love, that I'm in the middle of right now. And I am crazy about this book. I've had it for probably 15 or 20 years. And I go back to it. It's a short little book. It's easy. And it's by an author named Deepak Chopra. If you've been around into some of the quantum healing, that kind of stuff, you've probably heard his name before, but really intelligent medical doctor who is also really attuned spiritually. And he wrote this book called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. It's a fantastic read. And it has 7 laws that are each no more than a few pages long. And it gives you a way that you can start creating the psychology and the psychology of wealth and the actual steps that you go to achieve wealth in your life or anything else that you would define as success. One of those things is called the law of, or those laws is called the law of intention and desire. And then interestingly enough, the law right after it is called the law of detachment. So on one hand, you might think, wait a minute, I intend and I desire something, which is essentially you saying, this is what I want in my life, this is why I want it, this is what it's gonna bring me in, especially in emotion first. Because remember, when we get stuff, We want stuff because of the emotion it brings us. When you look at money, it's not just the green paper that brings the value, it's what the green paper brings to our lives. If you're really into giving money away, it's the feeling of giving that money away, or it's the feeling when you buy that certain product, or it's the feeling of having that pet that you take on a walk. The feeling is what we're after, right? And so when we have the law of intention and desire on display, what that tells us is that we intend for something to happen. That's our goal. Now here's the law of detachment on the other side. We keep our intention, but we detach from it having to go a certain way, for it having to be done by a certain time. Think of it this way. What if you had a goal that you had an intention to get done in 10 years? It's massive for you, right? Whatever it is. And you're like, I want this to be done in my life and accomplished in 10 years. And you keep saying every day, I want this within 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. Did you ever stop to think that maybe you could have had it in 2 years? But because you keep saying 10 years, you're doing things to make it take 10 years. On the other side of that equation, what if there's something that you really want to get done this year? What I know is, and I first learned this from John C. Maxwell, but I found it to be true, is most of us overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in a decade. So imagine if you said, in 2022, I want to save $50,000. Let's say that's what it was. What happens if you don't get to $50,000? What if you only get to $25,000 that you put into your savings account instead of $50,000? Would you say, well, man, I failed? And if you fail on your goals, that makes you less eager to set another goal to go after and to chase and to take care of. So from my perspective, and this is again, beautiful essence of this book, you say, I really want to save $50,000 because if I have $50,000 in savings or investments, that's going to be really important to my future. I might be able to leave that as a legacy to my children or to a foundation. It's going to secure and make sure that when my debt's paid off, I have this extra money to make sure I'm okay, right? There's this certain, whatever the feeling is, again, that we talked about earlier, for the reasons why you have the goals, the dreams and desires that you have, focus on those. Let those well up and like burn inside you. But then instead of saying, I want that in a year, you just keep your attention exactly on the goal of your intention of what you want to create, and then focus on what you need to do in the moment. We call these process goals versus outcome goals. The outcome goal in our previous example would be saving $50,000. The process goals would be saying, okay, what do I need to do to make extra money, to have extra money to save? And do those things every day, whatever the make it is. Then I'm going to take X amount of dollars and I'm going to put it away every single week or every single month. And then I'm going to look at investments that have a yield of 12% or 10%. I'm going to take this money and I'm going to put it in those vehicles because I know over a year it's going to equal this much. And then I'm going to get an extra job that makes another $30,000 a year. I'm going to get a side hustle, as it were. And by taking that, I know all of that's going to come my way, and then I'm going to use all these things together. See, those are the process goals that lead to the outcome goals. If all we ever do is focus on the big thing and we don't do the little things, we'll never have the big thing. So as we wind this up, I just want to tell you, you can have an amazing 2022. It can be incredible, but we need, each of us, me included, need to be intentional with how we're going about our business. So if I could encourage you to take some time, if you've not done this already, because again, you know, it's the beginning of the year, we're past 2021, take some time and reflect on the big areas or the details, however your mind works best. Then start saying, what could I do to make 2022 a great year? What would have to take place that if I looked back a year from now, I'm like, that was an amazing year. Start filling in that rubric or that matrix, right? That framework, fill those things in. And those are your kind of outcomes that we want. Now, what are the processes that lead you to those outcomes? Go after those processes, that's your actions, with a good attitude, do it consistently, and you will get your results. So anyway, very short, easy lesson, easy time. I'm learning it. I hope that this goes to you and hits your heart in some way or your mind. And that if you have questions, please reach out to me, jim@ramoslaw.com. I'm happy to give you any support that I can. Also, if you find this valuable, again, please share it. You can subscribe to our channels, whether it's on the podcast or YouTube or whatever, all the places you find that stuff. Ramos Law, that's what we do. We're here to help. And I wish you a great and successful 2022. Can't wait to get with you on the next episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast. Until then, take care.